Welcome back to Coliseum Forum. I am your intrepid host, Billy Flake, and today I am joined by Zach Thompson, I left the B out, and Lonnie Nadler, the creators of a really, really cool book you may have and probably have heard of, especially recently, Undone by Blood. How are you guys doing today?
Very good.
Yeah, doing all right. Thanks. How are you?
I'm thank you. Not everybody asked that. I'm doing very well, thank you. So let's
Hey,
jump
that's
right into
that's what
this.
you get when you have Canadians on the show.
Yeah,
It's
You,
that
nonstop
kindness.
politeness.
I'm really mad that I haven't gotten an apology from either of you for what you know, but it's that Canadian stereotype, right? Um,
Before this is over, I'm sure you'll get one.
so, but you guys you're both Canadian writers from Vancouver, is that right?
Hmm.
Correct. Yeah.
So, just to kind of go over your bona fides, who you guys are for maybe people that haven't followed your careers or just finding out about Undone by Blood or maybe some of your past stuff. You guys have worked on titles like X-Men. You guys have worked on titles like Guardians of the Galaxy. You guys, I mean, you are legit. I think that's what
Yeah.
the youth
That,
call it, right?
that's what
Um,
I tell. That's what I tell my dad.
no, Dad, I have a career in comics.
Yeah.
That's what I
I'm
tell.
legit.
That's what I tell my wife. I'm like, I'm legit. Yeah. So with that said, we're here today to talk about Undone by Blood. If you're looking for a first print of issue one, you better break open the piggy bank because the value has risen. What I'm going to use a big word here that I don't usually use. Precipitatively. Is that it? I mean, it's right in spelled.
Nice.
This is good,
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. But we have a trade coming shortly, and I'm going to plug it. You guys, if you are a Coliseum customer, or even if you have an LCS in your local town, let them know that you want this book because we can still order it. And it has a very cool surprise that the original comic didn't have. It has a forward by Norman Reedus. Do you guys want to tell me why Norman Reedus is doing a forward for your really cool comic?
Uh, yeah, I mean, the short story is that he read it and really, really liked it.
Yeah.
Um, so much so that he has now optioned it and with his new production company, the Big Bald Head Productions. Um, and he sort of read our weird revisionist Western and saw himself as the gunslinger in the pages and was sort of like smitten by it. But moreover than that, like he sort of like got right to the heart of the book, understood the themes and the premise really, really well, and sort of spoke to us almost on the same level that we approached the book with.
So how does that happen though? I mean, obviously, I imagine he's at his LCS or something like that. Reads the book, he's like, "Yep, this is what I want to do." But like, how does he get in contact with you guys? Like, does he ride up on a Harley and you're going out to maybe to go to get coffee and it's just Norman Reedus like, "I read that
Yeah.
book."
That's literally what happened. I was like in a Starbucks and just hear the rev of an engine and someone just yells my name and it was Norman Reedus and he was like,
He said,
"Yo,
"Let's ride."
yeah."
I imagine you guys go and pick up Zach and it's the three of you on the bike now, riding
Yeah,
beside
yeah.
Zach.
We're both in the little cart now, like holding Norman's dog. No, it's actually like a lot more boring, a lot more formal than that. It's
Yeah.
uh, the book Aftershock has a relationship with a talent agency in LA called CAA, and they rep like all the big talent. And CAA liked Undone by Blood and sent it to a bunch of their clients. So we had calls with like, I don't know how many we had, Zach, like 4 or 5, 6 calls with
We
different.
spent the early part of the year talking to tons of different people about it.
Yeah, so different people who were interested in adapting it, and ultimately made its way into Norman's lap, and he really liked it. We had a call with him and his producing partner Amanda Verdon, and we really liked what they had to say, and felt like if anyone was going to adapt it, they were going to do it authentically. So that's just kind of um, how it all worked out.
So let me ask you this: when you guys start Undone by Blood, and I kind of want to get to the themes and the premise of the book here shortly, but um, was the idea that like, yeah, we're gonna write this really dope comic that would probably be a really good TV show, or was the idea you guys got together, did this book, and you were like, we love this book, and this is what it is, and then this all came after the fact?
It was the second one. We pride ourselves on just making crazy comics that sort of exist for comics' sake, and um, I think we both thought at the beginning of writing this book that like no one was going to care about a strange revisionist Western that sort of had metatextual elements with an old Western novel. And so, you know, we tried to embrace the comics medium and make something really unique. And I think that this sort of thing happens when you make a good book, if I can call it that.
Oh no, yeah, I think it's fair to argue that it is a very good book. If you guys, I don't know if you do this. If I were you guys, I would get up every morning, eBay Undone by Blood #1, and then look at the price of what that book is at and be like, yeah, it's a good book. That's a good metric right there. So let's rewind a bit, because you guys, you know, you've had successful separate careers. How do you two get together? Like what happens there? Like how is it just because you guys are Canadian comics creators, or like how do you two join forces?
We kind of like really came up together. It was like we decided after we met, we decided to like sort of approach this thing together as co-writers and have each other's backs. And then after we did that, we would sort of, you know, separate and do our individual work as well as what we're doing together. But I don't know, initially, Zach, we tell this story a lot. We met on a bus ride home from Emerald City Comic Con.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were both in film school at the time, and at the same film school, but we didn't know each other. We probably like walked by each other in the halls and stuff. But I think we bonded because I was holding, I'd just gotten a sketch from Jeff Lemire, and Zach saw it, and awesome. Recognized the style immediately. And like we just kind of started talking and talked the whole bus ride home. And I think we hung out like one more time, and we went to see a concert. And then like after that, it was like, hey, let's write stuff together.
Oh, so, we went to see Goblin together.
Yeah, the like Italian metal band.
That was literally my next question. What concert was it? So let me ask you this, and this, we've had some co-creators, you know, guys that have written books together on the show before, like Ed Brisson, for example, talking about working with Jonathan Hickman on like New Mutants and things like that. For you guys working collaboratively, do you guys get the same sort of satisfaction out of like doing the stuff that you get when you guys work separately?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I think we write together differently than most people write together.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing.
No, that's great. So can you give us kind of a behind the scenes, like what is like the brain trust that is, you know, Lonnie Nadler and Zach Thompson? Like, how do you guys collaborate?
I mean, up until this year, literally sitting in the same room side by side. Even if this call was probably a year ago, you'd probably have both of our dumbasses on the same camera side by side with one another. But like we would alternate each other's houses every day, and we would sit in each other's living rooms, and we would just like both open the same Google Doc, and someone would start typing, and the other person would be like erasing behind them, being like, that's good, but here's how to make it better. And sort of like that constant sort of, hey, does this work? Or this is how I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And sort of just always collaborating on almost every line of every panel of every line of dialogue. And sort of like, I know other people trade, but we've never been that way.
So it's collaborative from beginning to the end.
Yeah, it's like, the way I kind of describe it is like Zach and I writing together is like a single unit. And when we write apart, it's like a completely separate single unit that exists. So like, you know, the books I've done by myself are very different than the books Zach's done by himself, which are also very different from the books we've done together.
Right.
Yeah. Can't pin us down.
So with that nailed down, we understand how you guys work together, and then sort of like, you know, now it's been optioned for this TV show. Give us the elevator pitch for Undone by Blood. Like what is the story of this book?
Zach, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I can try and do it in like one or two sentences. It's a young woman returns to a small town in Texas to enact revenge on the man who killed her family, and she's armed with a revolver and a Western novel in her hand. The key sort of thing that sort of defines this book is that on top of seeing her journey, we also see the journey of the Western novel. So when she's reading we're sort of seeing this fictional gunslinger. And so it's sort of both a 70s revenge Western and a very conventional sort of John Wayne style Western in one tasty package.
So
The tasty package being the most important part of that
wait.
recipe.
So you said Texas, isn't it Arizona?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Saul's in Texas, and
we're also we just
Arizona.
got off a call we're writing the second arc right now, and that's set in
which
Texas.
is set in Texas. Yeah, my mistake.
No, wait, is that a real thing?
You didn't know about the second arc?
The second arc is in Texas. Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I thought that was just a really good like save there. You're like, oh no, we're in Texas now. But then like
no, we actually were.
You're
we like
texting like, by the way, just stick with it. We're in
yeah,
Texas.
no, literally right before we got on this, we were working together, and like specifically talking about something in Texas.
Spoiler alert. So it takes place. We talked about this kind of in the pre-interview in a place called Sweetheart, Arizona. Which again, I complained to you guys, not a real place. I GPSed it, doesn't exist. There is Sweetheart Donuts. Shout out to Sweetheart Donuts in Arizona. So what was the thinking besides, I mean, with it kind of being like a neo-Western, you could have said it in Texas or, Montana, or what was why did you guys decide Arizona was the place for you?
I think it was, we wanted a place that felt ripe for a Western, and B, that also wasn't completely like overdone in Westerns, because we also didn't want to set something in Texas if we didn't have time to do the research for it, because it's a very specific way of speaking and a very specific history, and so we just thought Arizona was sort of this place that was I don't know, easier to handle, and then having a fictional town on top of that made it, especially one that has such a the name of Sweetheart is such a nice sounding veneer for something that's actually like a pretty horrible place. So all of those elements kind of mixed together into like why we set it there.
Excellent. Okay.
Stitching a lot of baggage.
I've never pitched an idea to a creator before, but if you guys are looking for like a cool like cowboy like Western thing, like the Grachos from Brazil, that'd be cool. Like, just throwing that out there.
I didn't even know about them. Yeah.
Oh, I ate at a Brazilian steakhouse this weekend. And I didn't know about them either, but they were like, do you know about Brazilian steak? And I was like, no, I have no idea. And they're like, okay, well, Brazilian cowboys called Grachos would like sear meat, and then they'd slice it off with these big swords. And so now we've turned it into this restaurant, and here you are. And so that's the idea behind it. So I've been looking for a way to slide that into a conversation, and on air seemed like the best time to do that.
You nailed it.
Thank you. It really, because the landing felt shaky. Like it was a good takeoff, but the landing was.
It's Undone by Blood Arc 3
coming
soon.
There you go. So let me ask you this. Now we know what the book is about, and we obviously are aware that it's being optioned. For you guys, meeting on a bus at ECC to now, like how wild is that for you guys? Like, I've talked to James Tynion the Fourth and Matt Rosenberg, and those guys kind of came up together in New York City, and their response was like, yeah, this is not whatever I imagined it would be. For you guys, I mean, is it kind of the same feeling?
I mean, the last 4 years have been a blur, I think, in a lot of ways.
And it's weird when you comics for both Zach and I are something we've wanted to do since we were kids.
Yeah.
So like to finally do it and then realize, oh, this is a business, and sometimes it's not as amazing as you imagine it's going to be. Sure. But I think any career is like that at the end of the day, but we still feel really lucky and love, if we didn't love it, we wouldn't be doing it.
Right. So you guys were both in film school to begin with. And I think you guys have both worked a little bit in that field as well, right? Besides just in comics. What do you think kind of steered you, I mean, besides being like passionate fans towards comics instead of like actively pursuing like, hey, we're going to be movie directors. We're going to use the pseudonym. We're going to be the new Coen brothers, right? Like, why did you guys gravitate towards comics?
I mean, there's a number of reasons, but part of it is like there's a lower budget and you can sort of execute your vision and sort of amass a team. And like most people who find themselves in creative careers, it was a mixture of like passion and opportunity. I think with our first book, we were both sort of like didn't know what we were doing, but we had a concept that we were passionate about that we wanted to create. And then we met Eric Zawadsky, who drew our first book, The Dregs, and he was like, I want to tell this story too. And we all just sort of like poured, 2 years of our lives into it and never really thought it was going to go anywhere. It was just more so like this vehicle to be like, oh, we can execute a really cool vision that doesn't require us to get a camera and go to the downtown east side and have bottles thrown at us while we try to film exteriors. But also like Lonnie's worked a lot more in film than I have and can probably speak to a marriage of doing both at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's largely what you said, I think, in terms of, comics, you really only need yourself and an artist, and that's a lot easier to amass than a whole team to make a film. And when you're people like Zach and myself who have very specific visions, it's easier to execute that with a smaller team. And I think we've just been fortunate in that the comics industry has embraced us. And like our Canadianness doesn't matter in comics, but in cinema, unfortunately, it does.
Oh, sorry. I've explained this on a couple of the other Coliseum forums. My monitor where I like see our engagement is off to here, so it looks like I'm like peering off into the distance. But I wear glasses, obviously. You fellas do as well. But Robbie says The Dregs, because you guys gave a shout out to The Dregs. He was really stoked about that. And then he said Goblin's superior soundtrack with lots of exclamation marks. So he's obviously you guys clearly agree with Robbie's sentiment there. So where does the idea from Undone by Blood come from? Like who, like, which one of you guys were in the shower and you're like, oh, I can't wait to text Zach, or I can't, you wake up from a dream and you're like, I got to call Lonnie right now. Like where's the genesis of this from?
I mean, funnily, probably partly from The Dregs, because The Dregs had a metatextual element that was sort of like parts of a genre addressing itself, but it was also like we both just loved westerns and really were like, I think we wanted to make something with a novel in it that people would have to like read long pages of text,
right, just
to see if we could get away with it.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say, I think it was at a point when Aftershock was asking us for pitches, and we were literally just sitting there trying to come up with what we should do next. And we both, like Zach said, we both wanted to do a Western, but we'd both also just seen the movie Nocturnal Animals, which was a huge influence on us in the book. And I don't think it would exist without having seen that, because it's another story within a story type thing.
Right.
And really, that was, we were like, how can we do this but not copy it? And, make it our own and say something interesting. And I think it was just like a paragraph we wrote at first, Zach, if I'm correct.
Yeah. It was pretty loose. It was basically just like a girl, like a Western sort of story that was like a revenge thing with a young girl, and then intercut with a Western novel. And like the idea being like the story reveals itself to be about like, the lessons that you may learn from the typical gunslinger might not work so well in the real world. And that was like as loose as we had it. And then we really built a lot of this book on the fly after that, like sort of just over the course of a year.
So it was from conception, from like pitching to Aftershock to like it getting published. It was about a year turnaround.
I think
it was about 2.
It was a while, because we signed a 3-book deal with Aftershock, and this is that was after we'd done our first book there called Her Infernal Descent. So like we had to do that first, and then we got to do Undone by Blood afterwards.
Does that mean there's a 3rd book coming?
Yes.
There's supposed to be 2 more.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the first. Yeah, I'm bad at math. I'm
No,
No, that
the first Her Infernal Descent was not included
In the
as part of the
three
deal.
book deal.
So
Okay.
expect more from us from Aftershock in the future.
So can we quantify the future so we can get people excited?
I mean, we're already working on it. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think we're working on it with Peter Kowalski, who drew our book Come Into Me at Black Mask. So
Yeah.
it's our next collaboration with Peter.
yeah.
And yeah, Zach and I have been working on it for the past year on and off. And
Yeah.
Peter just sent us some concept art this morning. So it's probably sometimes late next year you'll see it.
So
as soon as we're done writing the second arc of Undone by Blood, we'll basically jump into writing that. So.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So there is plenty of Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler from Aftershock going into the future. Like, if you're a big Undone by Blood fan, you've got stuff to look forward to, is what we're hearing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So I have to ask, because if I don't ask this, I will literally have customers come into the store and yell at me for not asking this specific question. I know it's a very recent announcement with the optioning, but how far through that process are they? And are you guys going to get involved with that at all?
I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
TV stuff is crazy right now, particularly at this moment in time.
Sure.
But the thing that's been very amazing about this whole process is that the door has been very open to Lonnie and I to be involved. We're told at the beginning of this process that they understand the importance of having creators involved in something like this. And
Excuse me.
That has actually become fairly evident throughout the process of developing it on the back end, where we've actually had opportunities where, we were negotiating something and Norman sort of stepped in on our behalf and sort of resolved some problems for us, to which we are incredibly grateful for, and realize that is not always the sort of normal way that this goes.
Right.
But yeah, it's in the beginning stages, but we are as involved as they'll let us.
Fair.
Yeah, we're at least our contracts state that we'll be co-executive producers, but in terms of how involved we'll be in the writing and stuff, obviously we want to be as involved as possible, but that'll be left up to whoever comes in to showrun, stuff like that.
So Robbie, who again was very excited about the Goblin name drop and that you guys mentioned the dregs, he also said, hands down, I'm reading anything these guys produce. They've quickly risen in the ranks of the industry standards. There's quotes there. For incredible comics, Aftershock is the company to produce these works, and I cannot wait for more books. So
hell yeah, thanks, Robbie.
Hell yeah.
Some feedback for you guys. And I'll be honest with you, I feel the same way. My wife was like, hey, who are these guys? Because usually I kind of over dinner, we'll prime her on who I'm talking to. You don't know who Ed Brubaker is? You don't know who Scotty Young is? I haven't done Scotty Young. I don't know why I said that one. But you never heard of Aubrey Sitterson? And so she's like, who are these? And I was like, so today is really cool because obviously I went and grabbed Come Into Me and stuff like that. I don't have an Undone by Blood, number one. I got priced out of that market real quick. But I was able to grab some of your work, some of your X-Men stuff too, because I am the X-Men at Coliseum. That is my thing. So I was able to grab some of your books and be like, it's these guys. And talking in the day has the potential to be talking to Robert Kirkman in 2001, right when that book gets announced, and here we are. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and co-sign what Robbie said. You guys are awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
not really a question, not a question. Just some.
Well,
things.
I mean, hopefully it's the case where 10 years from now.
So yeah,
we'll come back and be like, hey, remember when we were those bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Canadians, and now are these just jerk off.
You guys
LA
are in
living...
suits with slick back hair,
yeah.
look like Gordon Greco.
Yeah, I just got hair plugs coming out of my forehead.
Leather jackets for days.
Yeah.
No, you're but listen, I have your guys' email now. So if in that future 10 years from now, when I'll be almost 50, and that's crazy. Anyways, moral of the story is I'll be emailing you guys hey, we did that Coliseum forum. I was hoping you guys might consider coming back. Zach is in his Porsche broadcasting. No, please don't do that. Also, don't
with my hair plugs blowing in the wind.
wait. Why do you both have hair plugs in this
I don't
world?
Why not, man?
Yeah.
Is that like something like even if your hair's on thinning, you just become rich and you're like, yeah, hair plugs. That's what we're doing.
I just can't stop looking at pictures of John Travolta recently, so it's on my brain.
But didn't he finally just shave it? Like he shaved
I
it.
think
right?
he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
he like finally accepted his baldness, and like he looks 10 times better than he did with hair plugs.
Oh man, so good.
Not the right topic.
No, but we could talk about this. I had a conversation with my friend recently. He shaved his head. I'm like, why did you shave your hair? Your hair was fine. He's like, no, my hairline was starting to get bad, kind of like yours. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I have a bad hairline, but this was like a month ago, and it's still like
So rude.
I'll be in the shower and I'll just be like, no, Cliff, my hairline's fine. Shut up. Like I'm just like scolding him from miles away months later. Just this is completely fine. It is a mature hairline for a 36-year-old man. Thank you. I don't need hair plugs. Even if I become wealthy, I'm not getting hair plugs.
I feel like it just like it comes with the territory of working in comics in any capacity. It's like if you're a dude in comics,
It's going
the
away.
hair's going at some point.
Well, I think it's one or the other. Like you either look like a mountain man, just like full on the whole deal, or you get Grant Morrison. It's like Alan Moore, Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
There's like no. Sorry. That's the longest I've talked about hair on a Coliseum forum. So
But that's why you bring us in. Right?
that's right. You're the hair guys.
That's why
high shelf topics.
we'll never be invited back.
No, oh no, you guys are great. And you have 2 more books coming from Aftershock, and obviously, we're pretty hyped. I always love when I get stuff out of the creators that like people aren't really talking about just yet. So when your next book gets out, I'll be like, when your next book gets announced, I can be like, yeah, they told me, I knew about it. So for you guys, I mean, have you guys did work in film, and I want to kind of touch on something you said a little bit ago, Zach, because it was a very specific situation, and I don't know if it's a situation you've been in or it's just something you read about. You mentioned like trying to shoot exteriors and getting bottles thrown at you. Is that like a thing that happens in Canadian film production or like in general? Because that's not a trope I've read or heard.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that happened to our artist Eric on the Dregs when he was trying to shoot photos for reference for the book.
It happened to me too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was shooting something on the downtown east side where the book is set, for not related to the book at all, but I was helping a friend shoot something, and yeah, people started throwing bottles at us because it's like, for people who don't know, in Vancouver, the downtown east side is like the equivalent of LA's Skid Row.
Okay.
So they're very protective of their community.
Sure.
And anytime they see a camera, they just assume it's like, someone trying to catch them in the act or someone invading their home. So they want you out of there as quickly as possible. And the easiest way for them to do that is to throw bottles and cans at you.
It works.
It certainly does.
No. That sounds like a very hostile work environment. I don't know if I'd want to spend any extra time there. But I mean, I think I know I learned something. I'm hoping the viewers learn something. And if you're ever shooting something in the Lower East Side of Vancouver, prepare to get bottles thrown at you.
Yes. Don't do it. Don't try it. Is my advice.
This is something I'm always curious about, and I actually asked Chip Zdarsky this as well, because he created that book Stillwater. Have you guys ever been to Arizona?
No.
I think I was in the airport in Phoenix. That's it.
The worst answer possible.
No, not at all. Because we had talked about it a little bit, like why did we choose Arizona as our setting, not Texas. That's for volume 2. Spoiler alert. Why did we choose Arizona? And I was just curious if you guys had spent time there or really, I told you the story about there's a town there named after my family, which I'm not going to get into on air. I did want to elaborate on that. So there is a place, and you guys can, if you're watching, you can Google it. It's called Snowflake Ranch, and you can read the history of that. There's a movie, since you guys are both film students, I'm going to share this with you. It's called Fire in the Sky, and it is literally the scariest movie that's ever been made in the history of the world.
We know.
Oh, you guys are aware of this movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did it ruin your childhood too?
I remember it was scary. I remember.
Yeah.
I wasn't that young when I saw it, but I still remember it being quite frightening.
Oh, we had this tradition in my house where like every Friday night I was raised by my grandparents. My grandpa would go to the video store and he'd rent like two grown-up movies. And when I say grown-up movies, I don't mean like X-rated. I mean like just, something higher than PG-13.
Sure,
Right. And
sure.
then I'd get like a kids movie and a video game, right? But if the grown-up movie he rented wasn't crazy, like we could watch it with him. And he had rented Fire in the Sky and I was just way too young to see this movie. All the way until like my teen years, my biggest fear in the world was being abducted by aliens because of this movie. That has nothing to do with your book. I just wanted to share the story about Arizona and this movie that still I probably should talk to a therapist about because it ruined me. But that does take place in Snowflake Ranch.
Yeah, Arizona, like, yeah, we haven't been there, but I think we were, this is like boring background for the book, but we were plotting out, the main character Ethel goes on like a road trip with her family, and like that's sort of the crux of the story. And so we
Right.
were mapping out what her road trip would have been like. And the idea was that like her family sort of vacationed in Arizona every summer, because I think their dad like grew up there or something was her backstory,
Sure.
something like that. And so yeah, that just and then the set in the 70s, the sort of arid expansiveness of Arizona in a small town just like worked for what we were going for. But yeah,
There's also like discussion about Texas, which we talked about avoiding for research reasons, but also I think we talked about like New Mexico for a little bit, but then we were worried about comparisons to Breaking Bad, so we sort of like, yeah, it was a whole
stuck
thing.
ourselves in between there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Robbie wants to know, will you two, Zach and Lonnie, will you guys ever work with Jenna on a series together?
Like
I
the
feel
two
like-
of us
Yes, like the two of
writing
you.
and Jenna drawing.
Potentially. There's not a lot. I literally read it verbatim. It's not paraphrasing.
If you don't know, Jenna's my wife, and she co-created and drew a book, Black Stars Above, with me.
Yeah.
That was published by Vault Comics. Probably not.
Yeah, I'm not wading into that. No, thank you.
Jenna and I are working on a book together, our next book together right now. But I think after that, Jenna's a writer also, and she's probably just going to go the straight cartoonist route and start writing her own books without my involvement, because Jenna's got such specific stories she wants to tell, and she doesn't need anyone else to help her through it. So I think she's going to go on that route.
So, confirmation for the fans, there will never be a Zach, Lonnie, Jenna book.
No.
No,
I mean, probably not.
never say never. Who knows?
But there's like, I don't know, there's always a possibility that she does like covers and stuff for us. So
She's taking over and Undone by Blood.
yeah. Sammy's out, Jenna's in. Just because of you, Robbie, Sammy's fired.
Could you imagine me and Sammy watching this right now and like just tuning in at that moment, just like, what? You're getting texts right now, like, guys, you're not serious, right? I mean, what's next? I mean, I know you guys have, the multi-book deal at Aftershock. Obviously a TV show that it's hopefully going to production at some point in the future. I mean, what's next? Like, I mean, where do you guys go from here? Or like, where do you hope to go from here?
I mean, like, I currently have 2 other Aftershock books. I have Lonely Receiver, which is on the stands now, which is drawn and colored by Jen Hickman, and lettered by Simon Boland. That's like a weird horror romance sort of like thing that you should just check out. It's definitely a different type of horror book than you'd be sort of used to seeing, but it's about a woman who downloads an AI partner that is supposed to bond with her for life, and after 10 years the AI partner just goes, "I'm sick of your shit, I'm out," and they disappear from reality. So it's like a horrific breakup that is so insane it causes the main character's psyche to break, and then you sort of descend into hell with her. And in keeping with that
very light
Eldison.
reading.
Yeah, like
Yeah. You're gonna feel great after reading it. And then I've got a new book with Andy McDonald from the Multiple Man miniseries at Marvel. It's called I Breathe the Body, and it's like a weird fungal horror book about social media set in the near future. It comes out in January.
And who's that from?
That is also from Aftershock.
There you go.
They're my home now.
That's where you live. That's your lane.
To be perfectly honest, because just to have an opportunity for it for a second, they were a publisher who saw Lonnie and I very early and sort of like got behind us in a way that is super rare when you're a creator. And they basically said to us after our first book, here, you can do 4 books at this publisher, and you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And that we're incredibly fortunate to have that opportunity to work with them.
So
Yeah.
we can make this a big commercial. Lonnie, what else are you working on?
I'm also working on another book with Aftershock. That's a solo book. Won't be out for a while because I just started working on it. Like I said, Jenna and I are working on our next book together. That will also be a while before anyone sees it because it's really long. And I'm also writing a graphic novel, and I can't really say anything about it or the publisher, but it's not Aftershock. And that's a sort of neo-Gothic ghost story that hasn't been announced yet. And I'm about halfway through writing that. So hopefully I'll be able to start talking about that a bit more sometime early next year.
I will be honest with you guys. I'm really happy. I mean, I think some of the books that Aftershock are putting out, especially after the last couple of years, have the indie market is just on fire right now. I'm going to mention some guys that are not Aftershock, but I mean, Aftershock's definitely its name goes in with this list, but like Volt, Aftershock, Boom, there's the creative freedom that they're giving to creators, and the stuff that's coming out of those places is just like, if you're an indie comics reader, this is probably some of the best times to be alive and reading indie comics. So
yeah, I think it is the best time, really.
100%.
But with that said, also we need to give a shout out to Joe Pruitt. We actually did a Coliseum for him. He was one of my first guests that I did.
Nice.
I was like, man, I'm like a comic book nerd. Like, what do I ask a comics books publisher? Like, that's a big thing. Like, going all the way to the top. Like, can we just start on like writers? Like, can we do that? But no, he's a really awesome guy. And like like I said, Aftershock, some of the books that they're putting out are absolutely incredible. For example, Undone by Blood. Yeah, with that said, guys, what do you think the biggest challenge of being a comics book writer is?
Oh, that's a tough one.
The next few questions are tough. This is the tough part of the show.
This is where it turns into 60 minutes.
Yep.
I don't know. I think Zach and I were actually just talking about this, like when we were writing before we got on this interview. The idea in comics as the writer, you're not just the writer. Is something we've found out. And the part that we like is that you're also the director, but what they don't tell you is you're also the producer, and you're also the marketing team, and you're also the person who's doing all the business stuff in the back end that nobody else wants to do. So, for example, if your team is late getting paid, the writer is usually the guy who's got to go to the publisher and ask what's going on. You're the one who has to play telephone between the letterer and the artist or whatever if things need changing. You're the one who has to reach out to comic book shops and ask them to carry your book, and you're the one who has to set up promotions and stuff like that. So being a comic book writer is also being an entrepreneur, and I think like the more willing you are to do that, the more success you're going to have ultimately.
No, absolutely. And I don't want to destroy the magic of comic books, but I think for people that don't work in the industry, they're on the retail side or the creative side, they don't understand like what their favorite creator is out here doing. Like, it's a hustle. Like, I will tell people that are watching right now, like, there are people, like, names, people that they know, they will call you on the phone and be like, hey, please carry my book. Like, this is a thing that pretty regularly too, or emails. I mean,
Yeah.
this is how kind of Coliseum Forum came to fruition. You know, we get emails from creators saying like, hey, we've got this book coming out, and if it's a book we're excited about, we were like, hey, what can we do to kind of promote this and help get the word out a little bit better? That was kind of the genesis of Coliseum Forum. So like when you guys reached out and you were like, hey, Undone by Blood's gonna be a trade now. Are you guys into that? And we were like, yeah, we're definitely into that. That's cool. Hey, do you want to come talk to us about it? So here we are. But I mean, for me, on the retail side, it's easy. Like I find a book, I love it, right? And then a customer comes in and I'm like, hey, this is the book for you. But for you guys, you create the book. You're the writer, the producer, as you said, the marketing team in a lot of situations. It's a grind. You wear many hats basically. Of those hats, besides just the actual writing together, what is your favorite?
I don't want to wear any of those other hats.
Oh, you just.
I mean, that's not true. I really, really like. I feel like part of the thing I've learned about myself is that I really like sort of being that leader or that project manager, so to speak.
Sure.
And it feels really cool to get a group of basically friends together and just be like, let's make some cool shit. And that aspect of organizing time and organizing all of that other stuff has sort of led my writing to get more organized in a lot of different ways. And there's a lot of practicality that you gain from that if you treat it like a big deal. And I think that that's the thing, not to speak for both of us, but like when we like started with the dregs, like you and I, Lonnie, we were like back to back, like writing like thousands of emails. I can remember my fingers hurting, and because we didn't realize there was like an auto mailer that you could set up or anything. And so we're like there, like, you know, handwriting emails to every shop being like, please carry this book. And there was something that that grind sort of taught me like, oh, this is what you got to do. Like, just because you made something, no one's going to give a shit. You have to then go out and do the hard work of showing it to people and making connections. And that's always been so rewarding, because that's where you sort of find the people who love your book, and there may only be 10 of them, but it's the best. That's, you know.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, Billy, we don't have to tell you, but we put out a number one, but it's going up against 100 books that come out that Wednesday.
Oh yeah. No,
and if we don't put in the work to make sure people know and to like give shops the tools to be able to talk about the book and stuff like that, then like why should they promote it over anything else? So it's really just, you know, being part of the game, making your job easier, because in turn it only benefits us.
And you're right, it does. If nobody has said this to you from the retail side of what we do, thank you for doing that stuff, because again, it does make what we do easier. I think Phil, when we asked you guys to do Coliseum Forum, he's like, congratulations on that 1 in 1,000 shot that you guys got. Because again, there is a lot. I mean, I don't know how often you guys are in the LCSs, but you know, there's only so much rack space, and there is a lot of content from a lot of people. So the fact that you guys are here, first of all, again, and I've tried to avoid this for my own sake, talking about like X-Men and stuff that you guys have done at Marvel. But you know, having this conversation with you guys, you guys are just who you guys are. You're super talented, and we appreciate you. So thank you for what you're doing. Please keep doing it, because it makes my life easier. I have 2 children that are small, and I have to feed them. And the way I do that is by selling comic books and talking about comic books. So when there are creators out there like you two, it makes my life and my job so much easier. Guys, I don't want to take too much more of your time today. But I think you guys are like 3 hours. So it's like, what, 4 o'clock in the afternoon for you?
Yeah, it's easy for us. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See? But I also want you guys to get back to work and make more super cool comics for me to sell, and then again feed those 2 small children that I mentioned. But guys, again, thank you so much for doing Coliseum Forum. Also, if this does turn out and we're all right, and you guys have your hair plugs and your power suits and your Porsches, please don't forget about us when you know, in 10 years, when you've, you know, had a successful TV series and now have your own publisher, come back and see us for Coliseum Forum, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'd be happy to. And thanks so much for having us.
Also, if this pandemic ever ends, if you guys can, come down to Florida and visit. Like, we'll be happy to host you guys. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Okay. Yeah.
Love to.
All right, guys.
Once
So
that whole pandemic thing blows over.
that thing, that small nuisance, just that. I've had worse. Anyways, I have not had worse. I had to get the test. This is a true story. Before I let you guys go, I had to get the test. It may have been one of the worst things that has ever happened to me in my entire life. It is.
I don't.
Do you guys know
I
about
would
the test?
never.
Oh, I know about
it. Jams up your nose, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If you go, like, if you do like one of the tent ones, like if you go to the drive-through, they make you do it yourself, which I think is even worse. Like, I think if a doctor or like a nurse was doing it, it would be okay. But when you go to like the drive-through, they just like hand you a package. They're like, okay, roll up your car window because in case you're sick, now jam that up your face and then now spin it for 3 seconds. And like 3 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lifetime when you're like touching your brain. Like,
Oh my God.
And then you get done. And then you get done. And they're like, okay, now do the other one. Like with the same Q-tips. Go ahead and just jam that back up there and now spin it around for 3
That's horrible.
By the time you're done, you look like your prom date like left you, like you're just snot and tears. It doesn't hurt, but it is genuinely like maybe one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done in my entire life. So
that's a no from me, dog.
Yeah. You heard it here first.
Yeah, don't avoid it. Where do what you need to do to avoid it. That's the best advice I can give. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much for doing this. Again, 10 years from now, Power Suits Hair Plugs, come back and see us. If you can come back sooner than that, we'd love to have you back too.
Awesome. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.